Welcome to another episode of How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. I hope you are having an amazing day. As always, we've got a really cool topic planned for today. So I want to welcome our guest, Rob. How are you today, Rob?
I'm doing well, Brad. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks, man. So let's jump right in as we always do.
Sure.
How do you define wealth, and why do you believe traditional views of wealth might be misleading?
Yeah, Brad. So wealth is a way of living. It's not a number or a destination. It's a feeling of abundance in a mindset where you see the world as a place of opportunity and possibility to create your authentic life. And your authentic life is a life that's true to you. Because when you live a life that's true to you, there's happiness and meaning that comes from it. And to me, wealth is multidimensional. It's not just financial, it's physical, emotional, spiritual, intellectual. It's the relationships you have with loved ones and the experiences you have in life. And let's contrast that with the traditional view of wealth, which is how much money you have, the dollars in your bank account. And this is a one size fits all model that isn't unique to the individuals. And there's limitations to it. And I think it's best to use an example. Let's use two hypothetical people, Joe and John. So Joe has $10 million. He works 90 to 100 hours a week. He's always stressed out. He doesn't have any time for hobbies, doesn't have good relationships with family or friends, no connection with the community. He's so busy that he can't live a healthy lifestyle, can't exercise, doesn't eat well. Is he wealthy? And then John, on the other hand, has, $60 to $70,000 salary, right? And, he has ability to live within his means, loves to be in nature, loves to do things outdoors, has a real connection with the community, great relationships, lives a healthy lifestyle. Is he not wealthy? And so when it comes to wealth, it's not about how much you have, it's how you feel about what you have. And if you feel abundant, you're wealthy.
Man, do I love that. Wow, so much to unpack here. So I'm going to ask you, were you always that way? Is that how you define wealth your whole life?
Not at all. So, my journey is like most people's journey, has not been a linear one. When I grew up, I was fortunate to grow up in a financially secure household. But there was always a feeling of lack there. There was a feeling of fear that we could lose it all or it might not be there tomorrow. And so that creates a subconscious program that there's a never enough. And so that's how I felt growing up. There's never enough. I need more, more, more. And so I indexed on, money as the thing that was going to make me happy. If I got to a certain point or a certain dollar amount, it would change my life. And so what happened is I went through my career, I started to achieve things. I started to bring all these dreams to life. And, I became chief investment officer of our registered investment advisor. And I started making a lot of money. And I didn't feel any different. I felt the same as I felt before. And I think it brings up a really important concept too, which is the difference between pleasure and fulfillment. So pleasure is momentary. You get money, you buy a new car. It feels really good for a couple months. You love that car. And then 2 months later, it's old news. You don't even think about it anymore. Fulfillment's something more. Fulfillment is connection. It's connection with loved ones. It's connection with your experiences, connection with your passions, your job, your hobbies. And when you have that, that can last you years or decades. Whereas the pleasure can, fade, and it's something that you always have to constantly recreate. And so through my own personal journey, there was a hard moment in my life, probably around 35, I'm 40 now, where I had to look in the mirror and I didn't really like what I saw. I wasn't really taking good care of myself. I was out of shape. My relationships were suffering and I wasn't happy. And at that moment, I had to make a decision and I had to recommit to myself. I had to start to say, hey, maybe there's more than just the money. And maybe I need to unpack all those traumas and all those things in the past that were holding me back.
Wow. I mean, you've just like described me. I mean, everything you said, lack of at 10 years old, my mom said we might, because my dad wasn't paying and she couldn't keep up. She could barely keep up with the mortgage. She's like, we might lose the house. and that had a major impact on me. And till this day, she's still like, don't spend your money, don't spend your money. Like, she doesn't say you're going to run out, but she's like, the economy's terrible, it doesn't matter where it is, it's always like, just save your money. So yeah, I grew up with that same mentality. And then look, social media and the news really reinforce it, because when you hear anyone that is successful, right, or wealthy on the news or shows, it's always about money, right?
Yes, always. And it brings up a great story. So I want to tell the listeners a story. So Jack Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, who passed away, I believe, last year, brilliant guy, right? I mean, created a very successful investment company. And he gave a Georgetown commencement speech. And that speech was titled Enough. And what he talked about in that speech was a party that a hedge fund manager gave. It was a very lavish party. And at the party were two famous authors, Joseph Heller and Kurt Vonnegut. And they were talking amongst each other. And Kurt Vonnegut turns to Joseph Heller and says, that this hedge fund manager made more in one day than you made through your entire career. And Heller responds back and goes, you know what? I have something he'll never have. Enough. And I think that that's such an important concept when it comes to wealth. It's not that you can't want more. It's just you have to get to a point where what's enough for you. And that's unique to the individual. And that's where I feel like our society gets it wrong. For somebody, it might be something very modest. Maybe they, like we talked about in our example, they love to live in nature and it doesn't take much. And somebody else might more. And that's totally fine as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's billionaires right now around this planet that are like, not buying something because it's too expensive. And when I say not too expensive, I'm talking about like a dinner or something. There's someone out there that it's not enough. That's what you said is just so right on, because this is all subconscious stuff that was created in childhood as a way to help us survive, because that's what our subconscious mind is supposed to do. And when it's not enough, it's never enough. Look at all of the people who have passed away through drugs and alcohol. Matt Perry, I don't know what he was worth, but $50 million. Whitney Houston. I mean, I could go on. Kurt Cobain, on and on and on. Right. So it is so fascinating. So what do you do now, Rob? How do you help people, and exactly what do you do?
Yeah. So, I transitioned from my career as an investment advisor, because what I found from my standpoint, it wasn't for me picking the right stock for somebody and helping them necessarily, just create more financial wealth. It was helping them change the way they look at the world. And the great Wayne Dyer quote, I love philosophy, says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yeah.
And so I hit a point in my life where I wanted to impact people on a deeper level. It wasn't just the money. It was the way they looked at the world and the way they lived their life. So what I do now is I call it financial life coaching. So, I walk people through the fundamentals of money, which are important, because I feel like, unfortunately, our education system is a little devoid in doing that. It could be better. And so we talk about things such as building a spending plan, how to pay off your debt, credit, the investing basics. But, even before that, the foundational topics are emotional awareness, understanding how your emotions feel. So many of us, we don't check in with ourselves. It's good to know, what does it feel to you to be happy, to be angry, to be sad? Because when you become conscious of that, you can start to catch yourself, and you can start to create space between you when you're having that emotion and then when you have an impulse and you want to react. And just that moment could make such a big difference in financial decisions, because so many financial decisions go wrong based on fear or impulse. Yeah, those are the things. And so that foundational mindset element is so key. And then, kind of like what you do, Brad, we explore relationship with money. So challenge, uncover the beliefs, number one, and then start to challenge those beliefs, because most of our beliefs around money are partial truths. For example, money is bad. That's a common one, you hear a lot. And, money is bad in certain circumstances, but it's also great in others. And so we're not seeing it through that other lens, right? We're not seeing it through the fact that it can do amazing things in the world. And so people have to start to become aware of that and start to reframe the way they look at things. And finally, after going through that process, it's weaving and integrating, the client's finances into their authentic life. And so, as I talked about wealth being multidimensional, I want clients to think about, what do I want out of my relationships? What do I want out of my career? How does spirituality fit in my life? How can I live a more healthy lifestyle? because, we're infinite beings and we want to expand. And if you're only expanding financially, you're selling yourself short. You're never going to get the full experience.
I love it, man. I'm going to come back to that, but a couple of things you said. Yeah, my mom used to refer to people as they are filthy rich. And like 10 years ago, I said, Mom, why did you say that? She was like, I don't know why I said that. And it's probably because it was programmed into her brain. But
Yes.
talk about how money drives us. Oh my gosh. I could probably come up with 100 examples, but I want to just highlight a couple. I made between 2005 and 2017, I made 5 business mistakes that cost me and my partner $9 million. They were all around my lack of self-worth, thinking that if I could make this money, I would be valued. And then a year ago, I went to buy my son and his girlfriend Uber Eats. I was going to already Uber Eats for me and my daughter, and he just happened to be here with his girlfriend. I asked him what they wanted, and when I asked him, I had anxiety. Believe me, I've got plenty of money to order lots of Uber Eats. But why was that? So I went and I explored. I actually hired a therapist myself because I was like, I don't want to feel anxiety around this. And she's like, Brad, based on your childhood, how could you not have anxiety around money? It was that anxiety was protecting me from don't go spend all your money, because if you spend your money, you're going to end up homeless like you almost did, or in a public housing and shot, because that's what happened there when you were 10 years old. So we're saying the same exact thing, just a different way. It's incredible how many people money either brings them torment, or I guess I'll just leave it at that. Money brings a lot of people torment. I know it does a lot of good for a lot of people, but once you use the word awareness, emotional awareness, oh my Lord. So what you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. Are there a lot of people in the space, like a lot of people who are helping?
I feel like it's starting to kind of rise up. Ramit Sethi, I feel like it does something very similar, and I look up to him. I think he's done a great job of getting people to be more conscious about money. But it's weaving in that mindfulness aspect. It's weaving in all your other areas of life, because the financial industry historically has just been solely money. How much money are you making? How much money do you have? It doesn't tie into your life, and we all have to take ownership of our finances, right? We have to take ownership, but we also want to know how that's going to further our experience in life. Because I like to give an example. So, if you want to earn an extra $20,000, if there's no goal behind that and there's nothing driving you, it's not that inspiring. But if all of a sudden you can visualize, I really want to take my family to Italy because I want to, go through the canals and ride on a boat through the canals with them and, eat pasta and drink limoncello. I'm bringing that vision to life now. All of a sudden, that $20,000 I want to earn has a purpose. And when it has a purpose, now I'm going to be inspired to want to go work for it.
I mean, that's a great idea for people who are listening. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs that have employees and team members. You should be doing the same thing with your team members. You should be figuring out what their why is. Yes. Do they want to buy that yellow house for their mother in Florida, or take their family to Venice, like I got the fortunate thing to do a couple of weeks ago? It's so ironic that I had a coaching call about an hour or two ago with a client, and he's asking me, the last 10 minutes we talked about vision for his company. He's got this really amazing company. But he's like, I don't know if I want to do this or this. And I go, but what's your why? Like, what do you want to do? And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, well, let's start there. And you can ask yourself, the 7 levels deep is whatever you want to achieve. I want to become, I have another client that said, I want to become a billionaire. And I told him today, I go, I want you to say, why do you want to become a billionaire? And then 7 times after that, I want you to ask why. I want to become a billionaire because of this. And you have got to have a why. I've never had a financial planner in my life say, hey, what's your why? Or, where do you want to be, or what's important to you? It's just all about, here are the returns and here's how much money I can make you.
And you bring up some great points there, Brad, which is we often index on what others tell us or want for us. So we're living through the experience of others. And these could be loved ones, family and friends, and they have our best interests, they think, in mind, but they don't understand what it feels like to us and what's authentic to us. So it's important to go within and have that self-reflection, because only you know what feels right for you, and only you can create that. But you have to, ignore the noise, respect it, right? Listen to others' opinions, but ignore the noise and follow your own inner compass.
So give us some more actionable steps that our listeners can take to start redefining and achieving their own version of what wealth is.
Yeah. So, I think the key is living authentically. And living authentically is living a life that's true to you, where you pursue your unique passions and goals. And I give listeners 4 steps. The first is self-reflection. Take time for self-reflection. We're busy, right? We have all these responsibilities in lives, all these stressors. You got to take the kids to school and you got to go to work and all of that. But I would challenge listeners to take 15 minutes every day to sit by themselves. What do you want from your life? What's holding you back? Who are you? Start to ask these tough questions. And a lot of us, we don't want to go to that place because it's scary.
Scary.
But you have to go to the scary, uncomfortable places to grow. If you don't go there, you constantly recreate the same things. I'd say the second step is try new things. Go out and explore. Don't get in your comfort zone and keep doing the same things over and over because you're just going to recreate the same result. So shed that preconceived notion you have of what's possible in your life and start to step out and, meet new people, do new things. If you want a new career, look into that. Because when you live on that edge, then all of a sudden you're going to experience new relationships and you might just find things you really love. Step 3, use your intuition. So your intuition is just your inner knowing. It's a gut feeling that you have. And so many of us, we index on our rational mind. We have the right intentions, but we go through analysis paralysis. And, I don't know, Brad, if you ever just walked into a house and it just felt right, it felt really warm, or you met somebody and you feel like you've known them for decades, that's your intuition at work. And although it's important to rationalize decisions, you have to listen to those feelings and emotions. And I'd say the final thing is be open to change. You're not the same person today that you were 10 years ago, and you're not going to be the same person 10 years from now that you are today. So you just have to accept that you're constantly evolving. And that might mean a new social circle, a new career, a new living situation. Embrace that. Don't get stuck in the past. You have to learn to let go.
Yeah, authenticity, right? I can guarantee you that a lot of people's money issues, whether they spend a lot or they save a lot, is around survival. Just like when I got nervous or had anxiety about Uber Eats, it was my mind saying, brother, you could die here. Not consciously, but my 6 million-year-old primitive brain. So why is it that so many people struggle with authenticity? It's because when you're a child and you tell your mom you hate her because she wouldn't give you a cookie, and she cries for 2 hours, and then dad comes home and spanks you and says, don't ever make mom feel that way. Your primitive brain is saying, oh my God, I just upset the tribe. I might get kicked out. So I can no longer act my authentic self or else I'm going to die. So if you're smoking weed or drinking or hiding behind money or whatever it is your money issues are, or whatever issues in your life, I would bet you if you did the work that Rob was saying about asking yourself those deep questions, you're going to find that you aren't your true self because your mind is saying, I can't be my true self because I might get thrown out of the tribe. It's
Exactly. Exactly. And, bringing up a point you hit on earlier, Brad, which I want to encourage listeners to do, don't feel afraid to reach out to a therapist. There's a stigma, I think, in society that something's wrong with you. We're all on this constant evolution of working through issues. There's no end destination here. There's no perfect state. It's just a constant work, constant looking at yourself, constant growing. And that's how people live a happier life and become successful. Too often people, they get stuck in the same paradigm. They go through the same patterns, they recreate the same results, and they do that their whole life because they're too scared to, open that door and face all the skeletons in the closet.
Rob, let's talk about your journey. How did you go from like hard charging, I've got to make a lot of money to prove my worth, to this new Rob? What was your journey like?
Yeah. So, Brad, I think as I was going through my career as an investment advisor, I just, like I said, I wasn't feeling happy. There was something missing. And I think pain is the byproduct. It's, I'm spiritual. I'm a very spiritual guy. It's a byproduct, I think, of your soul calling to you and saying something's not right here, right? You were meant for something different, or you need something different in your life. And I ignored it because my upbringing was, Rob, you got a great job. You're making a lot of money. You're successful by society standards. Yeah. Why should I change this? It'd be stupid to change this. I'm going to give up making a lot of money to go off into the unknown. But it kept tugging at me and tugging at me and tugging at me. And, I just wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with how I was taking care of myself, what was going on in my life. And so, it's just that moment, I feel like we don't have to let it get to that point of so much pain, but often we do, where it just gets too painful and you go, you know what? I need to change. And there's a part of me that realized I'll be okay. It was exploring that fear, because so many of us have fears that hold us back. And, we've never taken that fear to the root. We've never actually explored, well, what does that mean to go there? And for me, it was always, well, I might be, destitute on the streets and never have enough food and blah, 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 blah. But, you look at your situation, and fortunately in my situation, and a lot of us in the developed world, that was never the case. I had people that loved me, that would support me. I was always, I always tell clients this is, because a lot of people, even that make a lot of money, they have this lack program. And the program is, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose it all. But they forget how'd you gain that all? It was your mind. It was your dedication. It was your skills. You can have everything taken from you, and that can't be taken from you. So if you have your mind and your will, you can get off the ground and you can recreate it. And there's examples of people that have done that. And so for me, I just got to this point where I said, you know what? I need to expand my awareness off of Rob, right? This isn't making me happy. I need to go out and start to preach my story and start to get out and help people feel, free from the prison that they've created for themselves. Because I was living in it. And I think any great authentic story is the raw truth. It's telling listeners what you went through and who you are. Because so many of us, we like to, get on the pedestal, and we get to a certain point and we forget that there was a journey there. And I always tell people, any great athlete or any, great actor or actress that you really admire, at one point they were no one. They went through that same journey of having to figure things out and having to work really hard. And you just don't see that process. You only see the end result. And I'd leave it with this. So, one of my favorite athletes was Kobe Bryant, and his mindset was just tremendous. And we all knew Kobe Bryant for the championships he won and all the points he scored. But he often talked about all the time he spent in the gym, all those hours of building the fundamentals. And that's, whether you're building a business or trying to build wealth, it's the same thing.
Yeah, you mentioned the word prison. It's absolutely interesting. I was going to say incredible, but I like to use the word interesting, that we put ourselves in an invisible prison. And someone once said, how do you escape prison? There's only one way. You have to first know that you're in prison. And so your soul woke up to, I'm in prison, and I was in prison. And so many of my loved ones and people in my network and strangers around the world are in this prison. And why are they in this prison? It goes back to everything we're saying, because they can't be their authentic selves, because their subconscious mind is telling them that if they are, they're going to get kicked out of the tribe and they're going to die.
Exactly. And my goal is for people to not to have to go through the pain that I went through, right? To not have to, younger generation, not have to recreate that experience, not have to have, 5 years where you're just lost and you're just hurting every day and it's hard to get out of bed. I don't want that, right? I want somebody to listen to this and then say, you know what? I'm going to make a change in my life. I'm going to, go out and try to build this business, or I'm going to go out and, find friends that are more loyal and more authentic, build my authentic self. So I want people to go on that journey sooner, and they're going to have a more fulfilling life that way. And they're going to have a longer fulfilling life that way.
So what do you say to the person who's listening that says, oh, that sounds great, guys, go live your dream and live your authentic self, but I'm having trouble, making my car payment and my rent payment each month? What do you say to that person?
Yeah. So I say, first, focus on what's in your control. So many of us, we focus on everything outside of us, inflation, what's going on in the world. These are things we can't control. What you can control is, how much money you're making, right? You can go out, try to get a side hustle, try to advance at your job, how you're spending your money. So you have to be hyper aware of where you're spending your money. So, is there wasted spend? How can I free that up? And I often say too, you have to focus on the small steps. So it becomes overwhelming when you think, gosh, I've got this giant car payment and all this debt, I'll never pay it off. Or, I need to save for retirement, I'll never get there, because you haven't broken it down into small actionable steps. And that means every day doing something right? Whether that's saving an extra dollar, paying off an extra dollar of debt, even if it's really small. I think we want the big windfall. We want it to happen overnight, but it's a progression. And when you start to do it, you're going to build self-confidence. And that's the byproduct of this. And when you have self-confidence, not only can you start paying off your debt, but now you're going to go, you know what? I can do this. What else can I do in my life? Where else can I push my boundaries? And where else can I expand? And that might take you into, again, advancing in your career, looking for other hobbies, like challenging yourself physically. And so it all starts, in one small place, and it can expand from there.
So if you're listening to this and wondering, are you not being your authentic self? And do you have these limiting beliefs from your past that are, controlling your money or lack thereof? Do yourself and your health and your family members a huge favor and just go take 2.5 minutes, go to unlocklimitlessyou.com/quiz and take our 12 question self-love quiz. It will give you a new awareness that could start you on a journey that forever changes your life, your finances, your health, your relationships. So do that favor for yourself and go take that quiz now. As we wrap up, Rob, do you want to share with us like a client success story?
Yeah, I've got a great one for you, Brad. So, we're going to protect this client's identity. So we'll call her Brittany. So, Brittany's a client that, I recently worked with. She's a young professional. She makes a 6-figure income. So she's doing very well. And when I work with clients, what I always do first is, we go through the goal setting process. And I like to take them through what I call a SMART goal setting process, which is just an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time sensitive. So we want to put some parameters around that because that's how you hold yourself accountable. And so when we were going through the process, she really wanted to buy a home. She thought that that was her main goal. But I always like to, understand the why. And what she told me didn't really sit well with me. She said, Rob, I feel like I'm being financially irresponsible. My mom and my accountant are telling me that I'm throwing my money away by renting. And mind you, she really loved where she lived. She loved, the neighborhood, where, close proximity to work. She could walk to work. So, and she was paying what she thought was a reasonable rent. So I always say, well, let's do the math because, finance is basic arithmetic. So let's just see, in your circumstance, if you were to buy a home, what's that look like? So I knew how much she was paying in rent. And then what we did is, we said, let's take a hypothetical example. So let's go to Redfin and Zillow. Let's look at, the estimated value of the home that you're renting and assume hypothetically that you could buy this or a similar value home. And what we found after the down payment, her mortgage would be double what she was paying in rent.
Whoa.
Double. She was getting a great deal. These homeowners had lived in the house forever, right? So they already had a low mortgage payment. So the rent she was paying was more than covering that. And so little did she know she was actually being very financially stable in terms of, the decision making that she was using. And so her eyes just lit up. It was like, whoa, like I didn't realize this was all in good order. And, I was looking in the background at nothing aligned with what she had said at the start, that she was being financially irresponsible. This is a young woman who was saving for retirement, had a 6-figure retirement account already, was doing all the right things. But so often, like we've talked about, it's the outside noise that gets in and it starts to veer you off course. And so, she realized that renting was the right decision for her. And it transcended that financial decision to rent. This, I think, goes deeper into life. So now when she needs to make a decision and be more authentic, she'll remember, hey, maybe I'm hearing this from family or friends, but how do I feel?
Yeah.
So it's not just the money, it's where it goes and where it takes you in life. And so that was just, I think, a really rewarding experience.
That's awesome. Nice work. I love the work you do. If people are interested in reaching out to you, how do they best reach you?
Yeah, so they can reach me directly through my website, authenticwealth.com. And I'd also encourage listeners to sign up for my free monthly newsletter. It's called The Truly Wealthy Life. And it's not only going to give you financial tips, but it's going to give you tips on how to live a wealthier life. And follow me on social media at Authentic Wealth.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
So that concludes another episode of How to Be Happy for Entrepreneurs. Remember, I'm on a mission to help 1 million people break down and get rid of these limiting beliefs that are causing them to not live the life that they so truly deserve. So I need your help. So if you like this podcast, can you please rate it, review it, share it, whatever you can do to get the word out. And until next time, love heals all.